And of course, it's day 2 of the ANC conference, well underway, but the reality is the gathering is still dealing with items from day 1. Accreditation has finally been complete. The organisation report is done, the financial report underway, and as far as we understand, according to the original plan for this meeting, the Integrity Committee report is also due to happen later this afternoon. They're all closed sessions, so we're just dealing with what we're hearing. But I'm joined now in our Hyde Park studios by political analyst Ibrahim Harvey and Mapeseka Muroa. Thank you so much to both of you. So accreditation, Ibrahim, is finally finished. Gosh, it took a while. We understand from what Nomvulo Mokonyane told ENCA is that there was a new system in place which not all regions had actually gone through properly. Anyway, whatever it was, it's done. Explain to us why it's such a contested issue, accreditation.
Well, it has to be, Sally, by its nature. Accreditation, you know, there's so much at stake in this conference, especially when it comes to voting and, you know, in terms of the nominations and so on. It's politically loaded. The whole notion of accreditation now assumes a much more prominent and important thing than it did at any previous conference, because the stakes are so much higher. And I agree completely, although I'm not familiar and have not seen the details of the new membership system that they're talking about, you know, which is important to have a look at. But is the ANC correct to do this, and that only so late did it finally complete the accreditation process? I think it's correct, because it carries a lot of weight. You have some people slipping in who are not qualified to do, and then taking important decisions about the future, who's going to be on the NEC, you know, it's pivotal. Very important.
And
yes.
It's a pivotal meeting. A difficult time, not a good look to start so delayed, but important to get it right, as you say, Ibrahim. But let's look at what's going on currently. We know the financial report is underway. If it's going according to the original schedule, the Integrity Committee report is due to be discussed, also behind closed doors. I see that they originally only gave it half an hour, but we know that both Cyril Ramaphosa and William Kize, both presidential nominees, are due to get the results of their reports. How pivotal could these reports be?
I think it's crucial for the general public, for us looking from the outside in, because these are 2 candidates that are running for the presidency. So it's very crucial. What we want to see, or what's supposed to happen here, the questions are, will the ANC hold these 2 candidates accountable? But then there is that risk. These are the 2 forward-running candidates. So then the question is, do you hold them accountable, and in that be consistent with both of them? Or are you going to be lenient, considering that there is sufficient evidence to say, actually, these 2 individuals have brought the political party into disrepute? Because that is the question. Have they brought the African National Congress into disrepute? So it's going to be interesting if there will be consistency and if there will be accountability. But also in the sense that the NEC is particularly behind President Ramaphosa. So he's got that sway in there. On the other hand, Zwelini Mkhize, it might not be the case. So it will be interesting how this all pans out.
Yeah, it really will. And of course, I suppose it flows naturally that the conference then, because next on the agenda is constitutional amendments. We know that, Section 25 of the Constitution does deal in part with this temporary suspension, what's become known as the step-aside rule. We've been hearing all along there's going to be a fierce push to do away with the step-aside rule. Do you think that's going to materialise, Ibrahim, that push?
It's a very controversial question. I'll tell you one aspect of the step-aside rule, which I think generally analysts and commentators have neglected, the media too. And this is what Dlamini Zuma said in a SABC interview. She's right. It only struck me later after listening to her that, you see, unless you go through this process thoroughly, I mean, do you know that there have been people who've been, so the allegations, right? And then they are charged by the NPA, and the cases against them, are dismissed in a court of law. So that is what Dlamini Zuma was saying. You know, what if that happens? So it's an inherent risk that the step-aside resolution policy of the ANC carries within it. Because it's true. Even Esmakashule. And what did the Zondo Commission of Inquiry have to say about that? It wasn't very clear that there was evidence, and so it's an example. So even him and other people who've had to step aside without facing this thing in court and being sentenced or found guilty, whatever it is. It's a grey area of the step-aside rule that few people have interrogated.
Yeah.
And
I am sure it's going to be raised at this conference, yes.
Yeah.
We will get back to that because I know that you're with us for another hour or so and our time is limited. But Mapeseka, speaking of Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, we know that she voted in favour of the Phala report in Parliament. For that, she's been told that she's going to be facing a disciplinary within the ANC. She's tweeted out, it's not going to affect my chances of being nominated from the floor when that's opening, which we understand may happen tonight. Do you think it will affect her chances? Who would make that decision?
Look, it shouldn't be able to. I mean, when we think about it, in terms of suspension, the languaging in the Constitution says may. You may suspend someone who is going through a disciplinary process. So, I mean, these are the questions that she can then bring to the fore and say, well, actually, it says may, it's not definitive. But I think at the core of it is that will she meet the threshold is one of the questions.
And it's got to be 25% of the delegates. In other words, about 1,000 people.
Absolutely. So we know that previously, particularly in 2017, I mean, she was a front runner. She was one of those individuals that, you know, many might have thought maybe she would have topped that seat. So now the question is, does she have enough gravitas? Does she have enough pool within this particular pool of delegates to actually ensure that she's got threshold?
Absolutely. Well, so much more to talk about. I'm glad we're going to have a more chance to chat to both of you. Harvey, Mapeseka, thank you. Ibrahim Harvey, sorry, Mapeseka Muroa. Thank you very much for chatting to me.